all the time that I work with, they say, hey, I want to sell, but I don't want to pay the taxes. So I would do a 1031 exchange, but on the flip side of that coin, I don't want to go find another property with new headaches. And, I'm retired. I want to travel. I want to spend more time with my family and friends, whatever it may be. And so that's when I discussed the Delaware Statutory Trust with them and how that can be a potential replacement solution where it's passively owned. They collect passive income every month and it defers all the capital gains taxes. And you can diversify. There's a lot of other benefits I'll get into, but thank you for scratching on the surface of that, David. The last and fourth option outside of the three that we've discussed is the deferred sales trust. Again, it's just another alternative option to the 1031 exchange for deferring taxes. And here's kind of the mechanics well, not yet, on the next slide on how it works, but here's a sample case that I'll show you. And this sample case is not only for the deferred sales trust, but it's also for anybody doing a 1031 exchange or anybody selling a property. Let's say you have a property and it's valued at $1 million. Your cost basis is $1 million, right? So that means you have about $4 million in gain that's going to be taxed. Federally, you're looking at 20% tax rate. Yeah, this is located, of course, they have the example shown in the state of California, so the taxes are high, 13.3%. And then you have the Medicare tax or the net investment income tax, also known as the Obamacare tax, another 3.8. So if you were to sell and pay the taxes and use that option, you're looking at almost $1.5 million in taxes that's poof, gone to Uncle Sam, right? And our thought process is always, why pay capital gains taxes if you don't have to, or if there's a solution that can help you avoid it? Everybody's situation is different. Everybody's situation is unique. But if some of these solutions are suitable for you in your situation, I would definitely recommend at least taking a look at it, learning about it, and see if it's something you'd be interested in. So here are the mechanics of how the deferred sales trust works. So the first DST. You have a seller with asset for sale. So let's say Carrick has a $5 million property. He's looking to put it on the market and sell it. The assets are sold to a third-party DST trustee in consideration for a DST installment contract, right? So Carrick is going to receive an installment note that's going to have a few items listed on it. I'll get to those terms. But in consideration, the third-party DST trustee is going to receive that asset. The DST trustee is going to then buy the assets and then sell them to the buyer in almost a simultaneous transaction that takes place. And this is all written up into the agreements. So DST trustee purchases the assets and then from Carrick and then sells them to the buyer, the individual who will be buying that property from Carrick. Okay. The buyer funds the trust. So those funds are going to go into a trust that has been set up and named by Carrick, however he wants to name it, right? So the funds will go into that trust. It's segregated. It's not commingled with any other funds, just in that trust for Carrick.
Even if you sold two properties?
Correct. Even if you sell two properties, multiple properties. And the nice thing about the deferred sales trust is, let's say you have a property that you've sold this year and it's in your trust, and the next year you sell another one, the funds can go into that same trust.
Oh, same.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Stocks, businesses. Yeah, I worked with an individual, sold his business a year and a half ago for $3 million, and all the funds went into the trust, deferred all the capital gains taxes from the business sale. As you can imagine, when you start a business, cost basis is very, very low, if any. And so all of that is taxable gain. Deferred all the taxes for him, and he now has it in a trust that's being invested and managed by myself for his benefit, right? So the funds are now inside of the trust. From that point, the individual who sold the property, which is Carrick in this case, in this example, would work with myself and an estate planning team trustee, third-party trustee, to invest those funds in a way that he sees fit, right? And the very cool part about the deferred sales trust is, unlike a 1031 exchange, the funds do not need to be reinvested into real estate. They can be, but you can also use a stock bond portfolio. You can use alternative investments, annuities. You can even go purchase a business with the funds inside of that trust. And it's still tax deferred, as long as the funds stay inside of that trust, it's tax deferred, right? So I work with Carrick and a trustee to come up with an investment plan that he sees fit and he signs off on. Once he signs off on it, the funds are invested as we've discussed. And from that point on, we've also discussed the terms of the note that Carrick will receive for being the beneficiary of the funds in that trust. Typically, the terms on the notes are 10-year notes. So the taxes are deferred for 10 years. But when you approach the end of that term, you can renew again for another 10 years if you want, right? But there has to be some kind of beneficial interest or interest to Carrick that he receives in turn for having that note. And typically it's going to be in the form of a monthly payment or quarterly payment or distribution that he's going to receive, just like any note that you would receive on an installment sale. So if we set it up and we say, hey, Carrick says we're going to discuss it, and we're going to say, hey, you want 5 or 6% interest paid to you per month from the funds that are invested are going to be earning interest and paying out a distribution to Carrick for his interest, right? His interest payment on that note. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to set it up and he's going to receive income every month. It's going to be directly deposited or send a check to him every month for how those funds are invested. It's up to him. We have a discussion on it, right?
But it can't be 1%.
Yeah, we can set it up to where if they don't even want income, they say, hey, we want to defer it for a couple of years. That's fine. We can do that. And in fact, I think it's better in that situation because it allows the funds to grow for a year or two before turning on income, which in the long term, I think is a much better situation for the investor overall. But yeah, it's an open discussion. Like one of my clients said, I only want like 2% of income being paid to me for the first couple of years. And then we can restructure the note to say, okay, after 2 years, we're going to bump it up to 5 or 6%. Yes. So if it can be, hey, I want 5% of my interest, and then I want the other 5% to be principal that's taken out, right? So we can structure it, and it's definitely a discussion, but we can't say, hey, I want 20, 15, whatever percent per year, because it has to be a realistic, attainable goal that we can actually hit, right? Instead of something that's just astronomical.
Well, you could
Yes, I believe so. Most of the time it's structured to where there has to be some kind of income payment made, but again, it can be as low as 1%, if you want.
So you can pull out the money and pay the capital gains tax.
Correct. No, if you, after a year of being in the deferred sales trust, you said, hey, you know what, I want to take all my money out and do something with it, you can do that. As long as the funds are invested in a liquid vehicle, you can, if it's a stock portfolio, sell everything out, send you the cash, and you would pay the capital gains taxes on it at that point. I have clients also who say, hey, I'm going to go purchase a property, or I'm going to use the money for whatever reason. Can I pull out, and they've got $3 million in the deferred sales trust. Can you send me a check for $100,000 at the end of the year? I'm going to pay taxes on that and go do something with it. We can definitely do that. The only thing is with a deferred sales trust, you can't treat it like your personal ATM. So you can't say, I'm going to pull money out this month and the next month I need some money, because you need to have some kind of arm length distance so it doesn't look like you're just managing the assets, because then it'll become taxable, which is one of the reasons why you work with a third party trustee as well the whole time the funds are in the trust. Go ahead.
So the 5%, that's taxed as regular income?
Correct.
100,000 a year, example of the end of the year, that's capital gains.
Correct. So if anybody didn't hear, the interest income that you receive is taxable at your ordinary income rate. And then if you pull out principal at the end of the year, whenever you want, it's long-term capital gains taxes. Correct. Good question. So those are the basic functions of how the deferred sales trust works. And like I said, sale of a business, sale of real estate, any highly appreciated asset, doesn't matter, it will work for those investments, right? Again, here are the DST benefits, some of which we've already discussed. Flexible payment options. You can set it up to receive no income the first few years, 1%, 2%, 6%, however you would like to structure it in a somewhat attainable, realistic structure, right? And it is a discussion between yourself, the financial advisor, and the third-party trustee who will be overseeing the investments inside of the trust. Yeah.
So reading into the examples you gave, you could discuss with your advisor an approach that's minimal because you want to keep the funds in there to do whatever.
Yes.
Buy another business property for a longer time and you want to do the funds.
Yes.
So your strategy might be to minimize, or you said possibly eliminate taking any funds. The other end of the scale is you want to maximize it. Well, your interest has to be reasonable, but you take a portion of it. For instance, if I just wanted to draw down 5 million.
Yeah.
Because retiring.
Yeah.
So that would be another strategy, is that I could say, well, within making it reasonable.
Yep.
For the rules of the engagement, so to speak, I can maximize the amount of income that would come out of it over 10 years.
Yeah. Yes.
That was really good question.
Yeah, great question, Eric. So if you want to maximize the benefit inside of the trust by, correct me if I'm wrong, by managing how much you take out interest or paid in interest versus how much you take out in principal and pay on those taxes, maybe you want to, if I understanding correctly, liquidate the trust over a 5 or 10 year period to minimize your tax hits all up front. You could definitely do that. If you said, hey, I'm going to take out 100,000 this year, I'm going to take out 200,000 this year, and then wait another year and maybe take out some more principal. It can kind of slow down what you're receiving over time. That is an option. Yes. Yes. Great question.
When dividends are dripped and reinvested,
Yeah.
can that be a capital gains though, or they're always being taxed?
It's so the note that you receive, I'll put it like this. If you say, hey, I need a 6% interest note, in the cases I've seen, you're going to receive a monthly payment for interest, right? Whether the account is going up or down, it's going to be coded as an interest payment. So if it's too high and it's not earning that or not keeping up with it, then it is a little bit counterintuitive because you're receiving monthly payments and you're paying them ordinary income taxes. The ideal situation, in my opinion, is for, I've done this for multiple individuals. If this is somebody sells their business and it's their whole nest egg and it's $5 million, whatever it is. And they sell it and they say, look, I need as much income as I can get. This is my retirement income. And this is all of my nest egg here. I need 6 or 7%. It's going to be hard to keep up with that long term, in my opinion. I think over time, you could see that account being drawn down on. And if they need the income right away, there's not going to be a whole lot of time for it to sit and incubate and grow before you start pulling income out of it. If there's a downturn in the market and all of a sudden the market tanks and you're still receiving that income every month, it's going to be a double negative, and you're going to be receiving income that you're paying ordinary income taxes on while your principal is being depleted at the same time. Does that make sense? So it depends on what your ordinary income bracket is. Absolutely. But the cases where I've seen it work the best, like this individual I worked with recently, he owns a number of other rental properties and real estate investments. He has a lot of money put away in his 401ks and IRAs and retirement accounts. What he sold his business for, he doesn't even need to touch it for quite a few more years. So he can defer the income on it for a number of years and then say, when I do turn it on, 2 or 3% is all I need. That will allow it to grow and defer for the longest period of time, and you'll get the most benefit out of it that way, in my opinion. Yeah, good.
About 25 years ago, we saw that voters using the ticket.
Yep.
What's wrong with that was investors' money and now they're subject to what the assets be sold dealers control.
Right.
And the big brother fund with Morgan Stanley now have funds with you, which are many of these sticks. But once again, it might be fine and you don't lose control.
Yep.
So this gives you more control over that vehicle.
Correct. And you mentioned the Morgan Stanleys having access to these investment vehicles, which we'll all be discussing, which is the Delaware Statutory Trust and